2-0, but who should we keep an eye on? I mean, obviously, I feel that the Chinese players, without those restrictions of travel and time zones, are doing a lot better. But Frosty, the guy who retired from competitive Hearthstone last week, is 2-0. That's somebody we definitely need to keep in mind if he finds his way back into GM. What, you retire?
And then you just get in? Okay, well, anyway,
really fast.
We could catch up on that a little bit later, but we are finally into the game. Ala-teemo on the top versus Jing on the bottom, and it is going to be that Demon Hunter mirror. So there are differences in the builds we went over, but for now, I feel like there's not even been nerfs, Lorinda. We're just back and starting off series with a Demon Hunter mirror.
Yeah, and if anything, the Demon Hunter now, because of how it's been pushed about, has been forced to be even more aggressive than it ever was. It may not be as consistent now, but the actual raw aggression is just still there. Look at this nonsense we're going to see from Ala-teemo. It's going to take him a while to work out just how great he wants his first turn to be here.
Yeah, and I think here, even though Jing is running the one Warglaives, this is where we might see the Warglaive nerf really hit home, because Ala-teemo has a very strong opening and Jing does not. But also, because Warglaives not only comes down a turn later, but Jing is also only running one of them, it means that it's less likely that the sort of snapback mechanic of, okay, I'm behind, but then I Warglaives clear the board and then get ahead. That either will happen too late or maybe not at all. So it might be a problem that in the mirror specifically, you don't have that mechanic to really fight back when you don't have the aggressive opening to match your opponent.
Yeah, and Ala-teemo's hand is just absolutely insane anyway. Jing's got all the clunky cards. The cards have been ruined, along with those Warglaives, by the nerfs. The Altruist is not that good until later in the game. The Glavebound might get stranded. This could all change very quickly with a couple of good pickups, but Ala-teemo has everything. The Skull will even be in the right position to reload once this first wave inevitably slowly runs out, because Demon Hunter's really good at sort of going back and forth, even with a bad draw for some time, but eventually the one that had the pressure will get it done.
Yeah, and this is one of those problems now, because as you mentioned, the Altruist doesn't have the big blowout turns as often. Some of the other cards have been nerfed. It means that it's much more likely to be whichever player gets ahead earliest just stays ahead, right? Like, there aren't that many tools to actually deal with this. We can even see that I-beam have been cut as well, I think, from both players' lists. I'll just double check that. But yeah, I think I-beams are just cut now. They're just not played in either of these lists, which means, again, there's just not that chance of going, okay, well, I'm a bit behind, but I have access to this 1-mana deal 3, heal 3 tool to be able to just insta-remove one of the minions.
Yeah, and that was really big in the mirrors, but it's not good if you're expecting a lot of Priest or a lot of Hunter you want to beat. It's okay against Hunter, but you'd still rather it just be something else a lot of the time, just another minion. Quite like this mana burn, though. I don't know when he actually gets to play it, and that might be his concern.
Maybe it wouldn't be terrible next turn.
Yeah.
He's not exactly going to play Altruist on curve, is he? You know, so it should be... I think mana burn's probably okay for next turn. Ooh, went Immolation.
Okay, so acknowledging that he's got to play a longer game because he's so far behind, not just what he can see, but what you can infer from the fact Ala-teemo has not missed a beat, and also his own hand is going to be behind. So acknowledging that basically he's got to clear the board a couple of turns and hope to pick up something better.
Yeah, it's whether that defensive Immolation aura is going to be enough, but yeah, you know, with that Twin Slice you mentioned, so it should be okay to defend, because as ever, one thing that I think is going to stick around in Demon Hunter for quite a while is the beaming sidekicks here, because just having that extra health on these early minions is pretty insane, as we're about to see.
Yeah. Immolation Aura actually doesn't mind this. It's one of the few cards that doesn't. Oh, this is great for Jing. Gives him just a way back into the game. Not necessarily immediately, but soon.
Yeah, it's a little bit annoying not to get that Satyr down along with either a Twin Slice or a Hero Power this turn, but I think this is just worth the Immolation Aura. Things can only go wrong, I feel, if you do not clear this board right now.
And he should be able to do enough damage to clear a one-off minion next turn from Ala-teemo, like even with a buff. And if there isn't a good minion played next turn, Jing can use that Satyr to level the game up.
I grow impatient.
You're always playing catch up when you're this slow off the mark, but if he levels it up, he's going to have that extra mana advantage for the whole game. Now the coin's gone for Ala-teemo.
Right, and I think if we're just looking at the general curve here, Immolation or a Hero Power, a little bit slow but fine. And then next turn there is Satyr, Hero Power, potentially Twin Slice. And then the turn after, there's Second Slice, Glavebound, you know, in terms of just sheer strongest turns possible, which means, yeah, it looks like Jing might be able to just push through a little bit. But as ever, Ala-teemo does have this Skull of Gul'dan on the end, so I think he, next couple of turns, is going to free that up on the left side of his hand, and then maybe that Skull will be enough then to flip the game back in his favour.
Oh yeah, this one is not done by any means. It's amazing, really. They've had such a sort of powerful starts, and Demon Hunter always does this. Neither player's actually taken any damage. It's just both on really high health totals still.
Yeah, very much reminiscent of the old zoo matchups, right? Where it's just you forever trade until someone sticks the board, but like, you know, for a couple of turns, and then the damage starts flying.
This is really awkward, though. This is exactly what Jing didn't want. And I wonder if we just see him play Altruist on the mage here. Altruist doesn't get much use in Demon Hunter mirrors, except in some really sort of wacky games. So it's just a 4-2 and a mage might actually just work here.
What about just the Satyr Hero Power and the Blazing Battle Mage? You get an extra minion. The problem is the Divine Shield farms that extra minion, but then you still have plenty to do next turn, and you get to save the, for example, still have the Twin Slice and Altruist for turn 6, which means you can do a 2 damage AoE again.
Yep. That makes sense. The more things, the better, and that's the best way of making things in Demon Hunter mirrors. And quite often, it doesn't matter how big or small they are either. Just having more minions gives you more flexibility.
Yeah, it's just the old number of attacks, isn't it, versus just a couple of big attacks. You'd rather have a lot of little ones.
I was talking about situations where Altruist can be really good, and Ala-teemo, if he pulls an Altruist off one of these two skulls, could end up with that situation. There is time. He's not taking a beating anytime soon.
This could be scary, though, because this is very easily... Oh, well, maybe it's just Warglaives now. But I was going to say, even just the Altruist with a Twin Slice here is pretty impressive.
Yeah, just the 1 point of damage would have made a big difference. Obviously, this is significantly better because Jing gets to keep the board advantage. Presumably won't attack. The damage to face isn't that relevant compared to killing your opponent's minions. And you know almost certainly that Skull's coming next turn, because why did your opponent float 3 mana last turn?
Yep. But looking at this, suddenly Twin Slice, Second Slice, Glavebound, what's that? Like 4, 7, 9, 11 damage just from that, never mind the 4 power on board.
I just caught himself there. He's going to do it, but he just suddenly realised, hang on, I've drawn a Glavebound, I can kill something with this. This is something I should think about.
Yeah, I do think the Skull's too powerful to not do, though.
Yeah, so much better, but...
Old Twin Slice, welcome back.
All I see is weakness.
I like the new Twin Slice. I like the nerf. I think it's a really good... I think it is a genuine balance change, not a nerf.
Right, yeah, it's different, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Here,
I like the way you sometimes have to weave it in.
Jing has a potentially very strong turn of just the... He could go for the Altruist here. He could swing and then end on the Umberwing. He would lose some damage if he did that, but it would clear the board and he would take no damage and he would end up with the Altruist and the 2/2 still alive.
I think the only reason to not play Altruist would be you're scared of your opponent having one.
Demons.
Because Ala-teemo has not been doing a lot with mana. He missed a turn, that's all, but yeah. There's another card there, the second skull as it happens, that could easily be Altruis. And if you go first, they play theirs. It can just lose you the game. So he's got to decide if he thinks he's okay without doing that.
Yeah, and to be fair, though, he could use his Altruis. He does just get more use out of his Warglaives like this. The Glavebound comes down. He's still pushing plenty of damage. And he still has Altruis and Twin Slice next turn.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot for Ala-teemo to sort out here. And this is really good for Jing if he can get this win, because we talked about, like, can he get the 3 wins against the Hunter? Well, every win he gets before he plays the Hunter is just a freebie.
Right.
Makes that job so much easier.
Gonna see the old Glavebound Adept tennis there, as he's just gonna be able to clear that one off. And now Jing a little bit on the back foot, especially with that Psychic buffing up the health on the Glavebound. Much more difficult to kill, but Jing now has his Skull of Gul'dan, and don't know about you, Lorinda, but this could just end the game pretty suddenly.
Yeah, what he has to do here is count, am I dead next turn? Well, 11's pretty out of sight these days after these nerfs. And can I 2-turn lethal my opponent with the Altruis? And the answer is yes. And just put those two things together and win the game.
Right.
So the tricky part here is making sure you can stick everything face and making sure you've got enough mana next turn to do the job.
Well, that looks like it all adds up to me. Not this turn, but next.
Right. And you'd rather wait till next turn if you can, because then you can clear any stuff that's in the way, although there's not many taunts you have to get through. As long as you get through a 3 health minion, it's okay.
Exactly, yeah. No, and there will be 3 spells regardless, just because of where Altruis is placed and where the rest of the cards are. Is he just going to go... Okay, this is interesting. He's actually going to clear. I am pretty surprised at this, Lorinda. I thought all this damage could have gone face. He could have took the 7 plus hero power 8, no problem.
Yeah, I feel like he didn't have to be scared of dying there. So maybe he didn't have a way to do the 2-turn lethal, and then he could die, I guess.
He doesn't have lethal next turn now, right?
Right. He's decided for... Oh! And this is the punish.
Do you see what must be done?
Just adding up, but he doesn't have lethal next turn.
It seems so crazy to me that he would put the damage into the Glavebound, so it's not as if he avoided damage from the Glavebound. If the Glavebound attacked him this turn and he didn't swing into it last turn, he's on the same amount of health, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now, how does he get 30?
Well, he gets away with it as it happens here.
Do you see what must be done?
That could have gone wrong, but he does get away with it. He was likely to get away with it because his deck was largely cheap enough. So he does get this clear now.
Job done.
So Ala-teemo needs 9. Is that possible? Spellkin could give him 2 Twin Slice,
That's 4.
which is 9 with the hero power. So yeah, very possible.
He's already got the chaos. So there's a Twin Slice.
Ooh.
7. Surely you play the Chaos Strike and see what you hit.
Sure. Consume Magic will draw him a card though if he plays it now too. Whereas if he plays Chaos Strike first, he won't draw from Consume Magic.
Right.
But it also means he has 1 extra mana. But what is he drawing for that he would need 1 extra mana to play for lethal?
Interesting. He doesn't even know what to consume.
Time grows
Ooh. That's a big deal because that's a removal tool.
It's a big deal because if he'd done it the other way, it was lethal, right? Well, I 1 off here.
He would have had 7 mana for 5,
Oh,
6,
so it would have
7.
been.
Yeah, he
right
wouldn't have been
there.
able to play the second slice. But importantly, he can remove a minion without taking damage himself, which is huge. Kane obviously nerfed as well. Only a 3/4 means he's not going to be able to value trade versus the Altruis. But at this point, it just doesn't matter, as that is going to be game regardless. He couldn't clear it up. The hero power plus the glaive bound is going to end it, but to me, Arinder, that looked like Jing made it a little bit more difficult for himself than he had to.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment. I might be wrong, but it did feel like the turn before, just go all face, tell your opponent you need 13, good luck, because I've got you the turn after. Maybe we counted it wrong, possibly, but that was a lot of damage with Altruis, the slice, the glaive bound adept. That surely added up to the 11 he needed.
I think that's the key point as well, because as I mentioned earlier, neither of these players are running the I-beams for heal, so the health is permanent in almost every circumstance. Also as well, there's no Vulperas in Ala-teemo's list, which means he can't even discover an I-beam to heal out of nowhere. And there's no taunts, apart from the Bone Chewer Brawlers, but which, as you mentioned, the Altruis would have done 3 damage to clear it off anyway with the spells you were going to cast for lethal. So really surprising there from Jing. It looked like he could have gone about it a little bit more of a simpler and quicker fashion, but he did get the win in the end. So it doesn't really matter if you get the win on the board. So he's going to go 1-0 up versus Ala-teemo, and that is going to leave him with Zoo and Murloc pounding left to try and, words I didn't think I'd utter today. So he's going to need to take a win with those to take down Ala-teemo and to continue some wins in this Swiss tournament here. But Ala-teemo still has plenty of time, right? He still has his Rogue, his Demon Hunter, and his actual Hunter to be able to deal with this. So pretty interesting series so far, though, even just kicking off with the old Demon Hunter mirror.
Yeah, and I talked a lot about, how he's targeting the Hunter to some degree, but actually the other 2 decks don't really like being hit hard and fast either. Demon Hunter usually survives against Dragon Hunter, I find, but the Rogue, the old Rogue doesn't heal stuff, is very true when you're playing Murlocs everywhere for the first 2 or 3 turns.
Yeah, and also as well, like, regardless of how much you put into the Galakron nerf affecting the Hunter matchup, it does to an extent, right? It means that the Rogue doesn't have as strong a way to stabilize against aggro in the mid to late game of just playing Galakron, maybe just drawing 2 0 mana cards. Because they cost 1, it means that it's not as reliable and just not as powerful. We've seen it already today, where some of the cards just weren't as good and weren't as playable as if they were, of course, 0. But we're going to see Jing go onto his Zoo Warlock using the old Disease Vulture there as well. Feels like an older school Zoo list as opposed to the newer ones we've seen with a lot of charge minions and the scrapping. This is just kind of regular Zoo from Jing here.
Yeah, and you have to have your wits about you playing this build as well. There's so many really weird little tricks that can go either your way or against you if you miss them. If you're not on your toes, and that goes for us too, I guess. Things can go badly wrong very quickly.
Yeah, and honestly, this is pretty much almost pre-expansion Zoo, because there is this camera thread in there, but there's Knife Jugglers, there's Evil Recruiter, there's Nefset Thrasher. All the old stuff's in there, and I'm pretty excited actually to see how this Zoo performs. Yeah,
I was going to ask you about the camera thread. I know he's a guy that you like, right? So, you happy with him in this deck?
I love it in Quest Warlock, but honestly, with this deck, if it runs Flame, it's something I said about the Scrap Imp lists, right? Mm-hmm. I saw some Scrap Imp lists in the past that ran Canrathed and then not Flame Imp, which confused me to a great extent. Whereas if you're running Canrathed, I think you should just run any cheap demons you can to be able to just get the full value of that card out. But honestly, with this list, I can see it working fine. I think it's just a good card.
Another thing to note, although it won't be so relevant in this game, but the Thrasher, we've been talking about people playing Yeti in their decks to get 4/5s against Priest and such like. It's a 4/5 for 3. What's not to like in a meta where you're expecting a lot of Priests?
Yeah, honestly, just the more I look at this list, the more I think it might just be pretty good right now. See how it performs versus Demon Hunter, though, as this Flame Imp is going to get farmed by the Battle Mage, but honestly, Jing's probably okay with that.
Fairly unfun decision here for Ala-teemo straight away. You never like having to use up your Orc Merchant this early, I don't think, but it's going to be really well placed against Zoo. Having Divine Shield. It's just a free kill.
Job's done.
Yeah, I really love the Orc Merchant. I think it's such a sick card in so many decks as well. Pretty much, if you've always got to look at that card and whether it's to be included in your deck. Where if you run, 1 and 2 drops, with more than 1 health, obviously, to be able to get some value. And it's why I like it so much in these Demon Hunter builds, especially from Ala-teemo, because he is running the 2 Enrage minions of Bone Chewer Brawler and the Armani Berserker, which works so well with the Og Merchant. And then you also just have some time when the Og Merchant just kills an enemy minion, right, with the 1 damage effect.
Yeah, it's really, really versatile. I'm surprised we haven't seen the others try to be used, but maybe they're just not good enough. The Rush one and the other one, I can't even remember what it does. It's so miserable.
Hey, I got you.
One's spell damage, one's Rush, one's Divine Shield.
The spell damage one I'd forgotten. But getting rid of this deficit, so a little bit of board presence starting to be established with Umberwing still in hand and Skull to come. This is a good position for the Demon Hunter to be in this early.
Oh, Carpet's good though. I even wonder if it's ever just holding off on these 1-drops. I guess. Oof. Okay. That's a tough one because this Carpet in not all circumstances. Oh yeah, there is 5 power. Yeah, so this Carpet always dies if Ala-teemo wants it to. It does soak, the whole turn if it's the hero power as well.
Yeah.
But that Carpet is a very good card, and he already has 2 1-drops in hand. So a little bit of a surprise for me that Jing just decided to play it out.
I was thinking that as well, exactly the same as you, but the more you look at it, it's like, well, what do I think the Demon Hunter is going to do next turn? It's going to play 1 or maybe 2 more minions. So if I don't soak it, I've got a Carpet and a sidekick taking on the world. And I don't care how much you smile as my sidekick, that world is not winning. So I think maybe it was just desperate to try and get to these Sea Giants and maybe turn it around that way.
Already with just hero power and this Umberwing, there's 12 damage?
Yeah.
That's and 2 extra minions on board. That's pretty insane. I do wonder if he ever trades away though, because Jing is running those 2 Sea Giants we can see in his hand. But for Ala-teemo's side, we talk a lot about hand reading, but playing just a Carpet just on the board where it's always dead is not a play you actually really want to make with Zoo. So I do wonder if Ala-teemo's got any inkling that there might be some Sea Giants coming down, but I think at this point he doesn't really care, because even if one comes down now, it's going to be 3-4 mana. Okay, just gets ignored and he dies this turn. So yeah, pretty crazy game from Ala-teemo so far.
Yeah, he's got 12 next turn if he wants it, which would put Jing to 1. So play your Sea Giant, be my guest. I'll just ignore it, I'll hit you in the face, and then what are you going to do? And Jing, after the first couple of turns, just didn't get into this.
I think it just goes to show, even with the nerfs, Demon Hunter is still very good at the early game, right? The nature of the hero power will probably almost always make it good at the early game. But just having these minions and mainly this Guardian Og Merchant was huge for Ala-teemo. Just fighting back that the early plays from Jing's Zoo means that you can just pretty much just pressure, and with the help of that changed, I won't even say nerf, but changed Twin Slice, that is going to be the game. And Demon Hunter now 2 for 2 in this series alone.
And look at it this way, apart from Kayn, which took a slight nerf to the health, nothing from 1 to 4 was changed. That was just a Demon Hunter game. It doesn't matter which Demon Hunter. It still curves 1, 2, 3, 4 exactly the same as it always did.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the point, right? And unless the hero power gets nerfed, which I'm sure Demon Hunter's had more than enough nerfs so far, with that hero power being as flexible as it is, it's hard to imagine a world in which any kind of tempo/aggro Demon Hunter doesn't exist, right? Because it's only going to get more cards. The archetype and the class is only going to get more cards as more expansions come out. So I'm excited to see if Demon Hunter just continues to reign supreme and is maybe just immune to nerfs, no matter how many Blizzard throw at it. But that does mean both Demon Hunters do have a win, so again, feels very similar to a pre-patch metagame here. But now we're going to get into the spicy stuff, as Jing either has his Zoo once again to queue with, or he has this Murloc Paladin to go against Ala-teemo's more, predictable lineup.
Yeah, Murloc Paladin, I just want to see it in action, but let's have a look at this rogue. Imagine how Murloc Paladin would line up against this, for instance. Suddenly your Spy Mistress, which is superb in so many situations, is just a 3-1 that trades into half of your opening play. Everything sort of goes backwards quite quickly here for the rogue, I feel.
Yeah, I think it's close. I think Rogue doesn't just die to aggro like a lot of people sort of still assume it does, especially these builds with the Quest Adventure, with the Blackjack Stunner, with these Spy Mistress that still get the work done. Backstab, ever the bane of Zoo from, I think, day one of Hearthstone, along with those Seal Fates. So there's definitely going to be game here in this matchup for Ala-teemo. It's not going to be easy, but even this opening hand looks pretty good. Spy Mistress into ambush. Seems like it might be good enough to just stem the tide against Jing's Zoo list here.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting if that Juggler was kept or not. I wanted to see, but he's after the bigger stuff, and I understand that. Juggler feels very much like a 30th card in this deck. Doesn't really fit the theme. But wow, it would have been handy.
I'm actually surprised that there's jugglers and not eggs in the list, honestly. Especially with, the Evil Genius in there too.
Yeah, that would make sense to me, but I find sometimes it's a matter of how you play the deck yourself. So everyone has a style. I know we have the debate, what's right, what's wrong. There's an absolute... Yeah, there is in chess as well, but tell that to all the grandmasters who lose to Magnus Carlsen. But I feel that you play the deck your way, and then you adjust the cards to suit your style. So Jing's style, maybe he's less aggressive with the genius than some other players, for instance, so the eggs don't suit him. That kind of thing can matter.
Right. I'm going to see if Ala-teemo wants to trade the Spy Mistress or whether he wants to do something else here. I imagine he has to trade it. He does have to be a bit defensive, but he did go for the Dagger Equip over anything else. And I imagine this is because he wants to save the ambush to combo with the Blackjack Stun in the same turn.
Yep. It's
going to pay off.
It's going to be a massive deal, yes.
Yeah.
These two Fell Wings, if anything had hit face, would have just launched all over the board. That so far just been denied, and that's could have been so much different if Ala-teemo had played this in a different order or been greedy at any point. He's aware that he's full on panic mode for the first 2 or 3 turns here.
Yeah, and this has paid off amazingly well here for Ala-teemo. Just solid play. I think a lot of people would just go, okay, secret, because if they play a minion next turn, then I have my 2/3, and then now Spy Mistress into X. But the way Ala-teemo's gone about this is just means suddenly he's fully in control of the board. He doesn't even use his minion to trade there. He's going to defend that with the dagger he chose to play on turn 2 instead of the secret. And he's just winning on board. And he has backup with the help of these lackeys and the Pharaoh Cat too.
Yeah, it's just a who has more things question. And if you've ever questioned why you play Pharaoh Cat in Rogue, if you're a newer player and it doesn't feel like it does anything, imagine how good it will be in this matchup half the time.
Right.
Just something out there, doesn't matter what, is such a big deal.
Yeah, the easiest way I always explain cards like Pharaoh Cat to maybe players who aren't overly experienced, or maybe new players even, is just imagine if instead of generate whatever it says on the card, it just says draw a card. Like a 1-mana 1/2 draw a card.
Yep.
Because that's his complete base. Kind of what it does. So, and then once that explanation gets said, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, it makes sense. It's like, well, there you go. And it's not strictly true, of course, but it's close enough.
And you look at what sort of cards it's drawing, and basically it draws you 8. So, yeah, that exactly fits what you're doing with Rogue, and works very nicely. It is a card that might be in your deck. As it happens, at the current build, it isn't, but, it's good enough.
I'm interested now to see if this ambusher just goes into the Nephroset. I think it is a reasonable trade-off. The ambusher, of course, fantastic against potential sea giants that Ala-teemo knows can be hanging around. But otherwise, this requires like a backstab plus the Spy Mistress. And I think holding on to that backstab might be a bit more useful going forward.
He agrees. I'm actually surprised he went 7 wide, not 6 wide here, just to leave some space for a card 2 if needed or whatever.
I think there's never a world in which he can't make space for that Kartut, to be fair, right?
Fine. Yeah.
Because if Jing doesn't play a minion, then he dies.
Yeah, you just put a 1/1.
Okay, he can't play the Kartut, but he wins the game.
Damn it!
And honestly, although it may not seem like the best minion to get, the Kartut is actually going to take on a kind of Tar Creeper role of just, okay, well, you've got a big threat now, you might be able to do something with it. Oh, here's an awkward minion that you have to trade through twice to be able to get to either any of my other minions or the Fates. So, Ala-teemo once again looking in a pretty strong position.
Yeah, and that role you just described. In the meantime, I'm going to kill you. I put this taunt up. You've got to hack through it in an irritating fashion with your deck that has no spells. Although it does have a Maeve, so in some world that would matter, but not this world.
The Maeve is going to be able to deal with the Kartut for the short term, which will then allow the Sea Giant, or could allow the Sea Giant to go face and activate these Frenzied Fellwings. The problem is, it's just too little too late, isn't it? He can't make that play because he'll die.
It was, but he's picked a Titanic Lackey. So now he actually has a bit of a play.
Making the only play he really can to win this game. Trading isn't really going to help him. And the 2 Frenzied comes down. And now suddenly there's an 8-10 to hack through.
He's dead next turn if he doesn't get rid of a lot of this, or if he doesn't kill Jing, which might be the plan. Backstab Lackey does 4.
He needs 1 damage, right? Oh no, it's lethal. He backstabs, trades in, then he has Kobold Lackey, Dagger, plus the minions that are left on board. I do believe that is 6, unless I'm going crazy.
I don't know yet. I'm not going to confirm or deny. I make it less, but I'm not very good at counting.
Wait, did I might have added it up for the Sea Giant being an 8-8, not an 8-10.
Right, that would...
Because I'm a fool.
Basis, you're right.
Yes, because I am a fool. So, what can he do? If he kills the Sea Giant, is that not going to be enough?
Whoa. So he's actually trying to find anything to give him health and protection, so misdirection was good there.
Or even potentially, I mean, it kind of gives him health, but even like a freezing trap might do some work if you can trade away some of the smaller minions and at least retain something for the future.
I missed the first Paladin one. It wasn't eye for an eye, right?
I don't think so.
Putting you on the spot there.
Yeah, you definitely put me on the spot, and I'm 100% not sure.
Cool. Well, it'll be a mystery to us as well, but it's not actually a problem. He did manage to kill enough off.
It's one of those weird games right now, though, because although it looks like Ala-teemo might not be able to get the job finished, remember, this Kartut is going to come back. Like, next turn, it's going to be back as a taunt. He's going to be able to heal it when it dies. It requires multiple trades to get through, and that probably just gives the Ala-teemo the time to get this last few pieces of damage through, even if he doesn't use these minions that he has on board to do it.
But this evil hand is potentially really strong. The evilness of it all. I'm going to find out where he stands with this eye for an eye.
Nope.
Oof.
Almost out of time.
Playing around secrets when you're roping is not one of the fun parts
Right.
at all.
Let's get Rush.
Lucky. Funny how we both looked at opposite things there. I assume he got everything off?
Yeah, I think he did, yeah.
This was such a straightforward game 2 or 3 turns ago, and it's just gone mad.
And now, though, I think what Ala-teemo is going to do is just try and make himself as safe as possible and just buy time. Because it really yeah, if he keeps putting taunt walls up, there's no real great ways that Jing can win the game, especially with the healing from this Carter. So it does look like he's just gonna, get these secrets, maybe play Shield of Galakron to give him multi-level taunt, try and trade away some minions again. But I think the real problem here is this Sea Giant being 7 health means that he could just be in trouble with just not being able to deal with this.
But because of all the early damage he's done, he will deal with this slowly but surely. And Jing can't tap his way out of damage, out of trouble. He's kind of stuck with drawing 1 card a turn for now, at least. And remember, this isn't your normal zoo list. This doesn't have, like, Hand of Gul'dan hanging around in there to bail him out. He's got to draw lackeys and not much else. And there's nothing big left in the deck, either.
Right.
There's like 1 Thrasher left, and that's it. Or Crazy Knife Juggler, maybe. Yep, you're right. Ala-teemo is just saying, do it.
Well, the benefit here is the eye for an eye. At first, looks like it's going to make the game a draw. But he has to trade through that Carter, which means Ala-teemo can take a hit, and Jing might not be able to if that's eye for an eye. So he has to engineer this so that the 2-1 hits face, if he's going to hit face with anything.
Yeah, and he's also got to decide what he wants to do with these vultures. Does he want to tap 1 more time? If so, when? How? Why? Can he take 4? Is he scared of Eviscerate? Probably. I would be.
He could do these trades, yeah, because he knows there's a Hunter secret. He now knows it's not Snake or Freezing, yeah. He could then go Vulture, hit face.
Yep. And there is no Eviscerate, so he can go to 4.
Right. Oh,
yeah, this allows him
okay.
to tap next turn.
When you say there's no Eviscerate, Lorinda, I see what looks close to an Eviscerate in his hand, and he's playing it now by the looks of things with that Ethereal Lackey.
Mm-hmm. I hear that.
From nothing. Power.
Still got the Shield of Galakron, of course, to have an extra go. Oh, what a decision, though.
Yeah, what's the least bad?
Well, which one might just accidentally win the game? Like, clever disguise
Oh, it's
might
Pilfer, right?
win the game.
Oh, okay. So, Pilfer into something?
Yeah, into half the cards that exist.
Well, Pilfer's from the class, right?
Yeah.
So Pilfer, Soulfire,
Yeah.
Lackey?
For sure. But once again, he's counted it, so he's okay. And he actually chose to keep the Pilfer back on purpose there, so he's got more information this turn. He realised it wasn't going to be lethal very often, I think, so...
I wonder.
I just feel like Jing has to tap.
Yeah, just having the 3/5s isn't going to be enough.
I guess he's worrying about things like explosive traps and such like as well that we're kind of ignoring.
Oh, it's a shame we didn't draw the juggler, right? So you could juggler tap and then just get some extra little juggles out.
Almost out of time.
Yeah, Juggler's fantastic in this spot. Trying to the Juggler, I think, so it's almost guaranteed. Well, 2 in 3 chance to kill these 1 health minions, but he's been sniped. Benefit of that order, of course, is that he gets the taunt to stay in play, which is huge. What is this board, Raven?
Okay, well, let's Seal Fate, so he can get rid of this Voidwalker. A Kobold Lackey would give him lethal. With the dagger, of course.
Yep.
Give me a quest.
These slimes are irritating. He wants to set up the eye for an eye so he can't lose, preferably. But maybe he just wins it with the pill. Puts us out of our misery.
Nope.
Any lackeys? Any spells?
I was going to say, I'd hope there'd be a lackey. That's literally what the card does.
Dirty tricks if he's alive.
Choose soon.
Go for disguise. You can trade in the lackey into the vulture. That only leaves 3, 4, 6 power on board. Seems reasonable enough to not dagger. I mean, oh, he is gonna dagger though.
Okay. There's no lethal here.
Yeah, I guess this stops him tapping, right? Because he's dead to dagger if
Yeah.
he taps and doesn't get a taunt.
And so that's checkmate, I think, here.
I wonder.
How does Jing get enough damage here? Does Wolf Rider get anywhere? Like, from his world, we can see it doesn't. But
Put this apple on your head.
Yeah, there's pretty much nothing
Juggler,
in his deck
tap.
either.
Wolf Rider, then juggles to face.
Mukla in the air.
Jeez.
Any other world would be pretty good right now, but not when you're just literally dead.
Just look at Ala-teemo's face, he's like, just please end this game of Hearthstone.
Yeah, I mean,
It ended 20 turns ago.
he's been so close for so long throughout this game. You'd get to feel like it was only a matter of time, and it was, as Ala-teemo does take the victory on his rogue over Jing's warlock. Jing taking another loss on that warlock is starting to make it look a little bit scary. And as I mentioned, rogue, historically weak to aggro, is actually, if you really think about it, historically quite good at dealing with minions, right? Just like one minion per turn, they can normally deal with that pretty efficiently. And even with those sea giants, the taunts, everything sort of crazy came out for Jing, Ala-teemo did still get there. And that's going to leave Ala-teemo just with this Highlander Hunter to get a win with. And honestly, I think Highlander Hunter was, as a lot of people seem to agree, definitely the bring for this tournament. So I think our team is going to be feeling quite comfortable with this last deck.
I mean, he's got 2 goes at it, that's always the line, but I'm not so sure. I think Highlander Hunter... It's the basic deck that you have to beat in this format, right? It does its thing, it does it well, but it doesn't like aggro. It just doesn't. This is a little bit more one heavy than normal, though, to be fair.
Right, I think, honestly, people underestimate how low curve this deck is. You can see it right there. There's 7 2-drops. There's 8 3-drops, which is insane, of course. And some of those cards are very, very good at fighting back. Honestly, the times where Hunter really loses versus aggro is if the Hunter has a bad opening, but that doesn't happen that often. Although it is a Highlander deck, it's tuned so heavily to such a low curve that it's actually quite hard to get a bad opening hand that's bad enough for you to not be able to, keep pace with like a normal aggro deck, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how it works out with the Murlocs. I'd like to see that.
Well, we're not going to. Not for this game. It's going to be Warlock once again.
I think that
from
the
Jing.
Murloc's ability to go so wide so quickly can put the Hunter in trouble. Whereas the Zoo is a little bit more one card at a time. It still obviously goes wide pretty rapidly. Well, Ala-teemo, how much of this good stuff do you want to keep?
I think you could probably throw most of it, honestly. Maybe keep the Primordial? Maybe.
Interesting.
Because none of these...
Super Tempters keep Unleash.
What does Unleash kill, though, in Zoo? Like,
fair point.
Unleash doesn't,
Actually, looking down, everything has 2, doesn't it?
yeah,
these days?
Unleash is something you want when you already have some kind of board, right? To make the breakpoints cleaner with the 1 points of damage from the dogs. So really, I wouldn't mind Ala-teemo throwing all of this. There's an argument because he's on coin, he could keep Scale Rider and Primordial Explorer to coin Scale Rider and then go Primordial. But it looks like he did throw it all.
Why do you call?
There's a reason you're here, Raven.
Yeah, look, I don't know a lot of things, but I know a bit about Hunter, that's all I'll say. And then look at this curve, right? It's already paid for itself, this mulligan for Ala-teemo.
Yep.
He has the Battle Master, now he has the Org Merchant. Even the Swampoos isn't a terrible turn 2 play because it does contest pretty much all the minions from Jing, as in on a 1-by-1 basis, of course. So yeah, this is looking a lot better. Otherwise, he might have been stuck in the world where he just doesn't have a turn 1 play. Maybe not even a turn 2 play outside of a coin 3 drop.
Will he be looking to keep this coin for the 4 drops? They look pretty tasty. Or will he be looking to do, this?
The coin into Swampoos into double 1 seems pretty good.
Yeah. Ala-teemo, you cast him obviously a lot last year. He looks like a different player to me. He was always a super strong player, but he looks like he's managed to just cool the nerves right down. He used to be so excited to just be playing Hearthstone, I felt.
I do think over the past, I'll say year and a half roughly, that he has gone from being a really good player to a great player. Up there, like I said, I put his name next to Surrender in the Asia Pacific region, and maybe after this past season, Glory as well. And I don't put players next to Surrender lightly. So Ala-teemo, especially when I was casting Asia Pacific, very much impressed me as one of the players who, in APAC, didn't really mess up that often. Everyone makes a bit of blunders now and again, but he just didn't. He just played extremely solid Hearthstone. He had some really good deck choices, some really good lineup choices, and just won a lot of games. So I have faith in Ala-teemo no matter what he's playing. So we see now the Org Merchant, again, paying off in the other way, not only being able to buff and Divine Shield your own minions, but just pinging off awkward minions as well from your opponent.
Yeah, and I feel that when it comes to GM players, you do the curve every week, so you've got the authority on having to see everybody. So that's high praise indeed, sir.
And now this is what I was saying as well, like, as long as Hunter doesn't just whiff in the early game, you can see now that even going toe-to-toe is actually favouring Ala-teemo over time, right?
Yeah.
If you extend this game out, Hunter normally just does so well because it can just drop down minions turn after turn after turn, whereas suddenly Jing's hand is looking a little bit wishy-washy right now.
Yeah, not much coordination there and slow, and that's one of the problems with playing Felwing. When they do their thing, they are absolutely unstoppable, like literally. You get an early hit in, play a couple of Felwings, and games end.
Right.
But the opposite is also true. You end up with this horrible, rubbishy 3-2 for 4 mana that does nothing if you get behind, and he's got behind.
I would really like to see Dragonbane here from Ala-teemo, although it's not the most power strictly in terms of stats on board this turn. If he played Dragonbane and then just trades the Org Merchant into the Flaming, leave the 4/5 up 1, the Neferset's actually giving you a hand at just doing damage to your opponent, but also the Dragonbane is a must-kill target for Jing, and he can't really kill it. There's not really that many consistent ways for Jing to take down the Dragonbane. Ala-teemo has gone for the Evasive Feywing, which is hard to kill in a different way, but it being untargetable against this Warlock deck doesn't really matter, because there aren't really any spells. So there's nothing to target anyway, apart from potentially, Lackey Generation stuff. So, again, I think I would have liked the Dragonbane there from Ala-teemo.
Yeah, Zigzaw hero power on the turn after playing a Dragonbane looked pretty terrifying if it wasn't killed off.
He even had...
And even if it was, whatever.
He even had Corrosive Breath hero power Battle Mage. If you really wanted to, or needed to, should I say.
So let's keep an eye on how this works out for him, the way he decides to play it.
Yeah, this is it though, right? It's dealt 3 damage to Jing now. He got the trade into a 4-1 with the 4/5. And now what, right? He's just dead?
Not quite, because
he had
it's
a mana.
decent pickup.
You would have loved Plague of Flames right now.
Oh, yes. He's down to 16. He hasn't done anything.
Probably has to sack pack, honestly.
So Plague of Flames with the plan being whatever you play, I'm going to kill it and play my new board. And give myself one last chance. Give Jing one last chance to try and stick a board. Hope the Hunter whiffs a couple of times.
I think actually using the Corrosive Breath here, it might look like overkill and you're weaving hero powers, but what this does is just say, well, now you've got no minions to buff, right? We can see, or we know, and our team who knows that Jing plays Evil Recruiter. That he might have got a Plague of Flames, or he might have got something to help him trade with that minion on the board. So it's not worth leaving it up. You can just use Corrosive Breath now. Next turn, he's probably shoehorned in for Dragonbane hero power. Or, if a taunt does come out, he has that Evasive Worm now to just rush into it and probably kill it.
So Jing does have plays available right now, but they're not very enticing. For instance, Mave, Plague, Kobold, so you've got a 1-1 on the board, just to throw some nonsense out there. You can clear. So you play the Kobold, Plague, and then Mave.
Mm-hmm. I think he probably just has to, right?
Like Kobold the face, then Plague, and then Mave the one that survives. At least you've got a minion on the board with some backup in hand.
Just... I wonder if it's ever worth Kobolding one of the minions, right? Purely because I just wonder, if you're doing the Maeve play, I wondered if the chance at when the minion does come out of the Maeve in prison, it being lower health would make a difference. He did go for the Canrathed into the Plague to just get both the minions off cleanly, leave the Maeve in hand, and go for that Frenzied Felwing.
Yeah, this is a touch better because he does get to Maeve next turn. Because he was able to shoot face to get the Felwing down. But it needs to be exceptional because while we've been gossiping, Kill Command has come off the top as well.
Right.
And he's still on 27, so it's just hero power, and kill command, and that's the end of the game. Even if Jing is like left to run riot here for a couple of turns.
Oh, I don't like that pick either. I think he had to go for... I guess it probably doesn't make a difference. I just wondered whether he had to go for Draconic Lackey and Maeve this turn, and then try and just get some kind of dragon that wins him the game. I'm clutching at straws here, as you could probably guess, but I don't think a faceless Lackey actually achieves too much in the grand scheme of things.
I think he's trying to get a 9/9/2 drop.
Yeah.
Is this necessary, Raven? Didn't hero power just win like always next turn?
I think this does something similar anyway, right?
Sure. Oh yeah, I don't think he's thrown the game, put it that way.
Right.
But I just feel like hero power, and then next turn it's unstoppable. But he may have a healing mind like Sack Pact or something that I'm not factoring in.
The point is here as well, is next turn he gets the hero power with the Dragonbane anyway. And this minion helps him remove some of this board, because Jing can't leave CM out, so he has to trade somehow, probably. Which means some minions trade in. He also has the kill command too to actually narrow down the board even further for this Dragonbane to take the kill. So I think the hero powering, because he has so much damage potentially available anyway, the minion was actually just better to just try and secure the board and make the Dragonbane more consistent.
It's your lucky day.
Ala-teemo is going to go to 3-0. And I thought at the start of this tournament, actually, that this one in particular, the way that there wasn't much time to prepare, would favour the Grandmasters, and particularly the players with strong support groups around them, which tends to be Grandmasters. The amount of playtesting you need to do in 2 days is not enough for one person. You need to share information with people. Like we saw Orange and Aveline were teamed up with Muzzy and Sain and Impact, for instance. Just alliances formed to help playtest. And Ala-teemo just strikes me as somebody who works really hard, so no shocker to see him on 3-0.
Well, funnily enough, the game's not technically over yet. Jing has 1 turn to pull something out of the bag. Never mind.
Right, so we'll give him Bloodlust, see how that goes. Yeah, it doesn't matter anyway.
If the Dragonbane is going to do it, it's going to do it. And Ala-teemo takes the series, and as you mentioned, goes 3-0 up in Swiss, and just continues to impress not only throughout Grandmasters, but also in this Masters Tour as well. So congratulations to him. Jing, it's a shame we didn't get to see the Murloc Paladin just to see what it could do. But overall, I was glad we get to see some of these more different lineups and players we don't see too much of in Masters Tours and throughout Grandmasters. So pretty cool overall. But do you have faith in Jing, Clorinda? He is not off a bad score himself already at 2-1 now.
I don't. I mean, the way the whole of the Chinese players are doing overall was pretty good when I last looked. Just had another glance there, maybe dropping down a little bit. But Jing hasn't been like world beating in the Gold League, but he's also pretty good, and he's got a pretty good team around him.
Right.
So 2-1. Have I got faith in him getting top 8? No, but could he? And would I be surprised? I wouldn't be surprised if Jing made it, but he didn't look there to be making 100% sure decisions of himself.
Yeah, some of the options did seem a little bit off, but or at least I can't speak for you, of course, Linda, but I'm no expert on that zoo list right now. So I'll hand over the benefit of the doubt to Jing, no doubt at all there. But that is going to be us for our first match of this round. But there's plenty more matches coming up, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with some more Hearthstone.
Welcome back, everybody. Round number 3 here at Masters Tour Asia Pacific. My name is Sotul, and I am joined to wrap up round 3 with Gia. Gia, how has your day been going so far?
It's been great, Sotul. It is the middle of the afternoon for me, a very normal human hour
Nice.
to be awake. I've heard that's not the case for you guys over in Europe, though.
It's not. No, you definitely have the luxury shift this time around. All of us UK boys have been schlepping it through the night to bring all of you at home all of this hot and spicy Hearthstone action, but we still have plenty more of it to come. So even though the sun has come up for us here in the UK, we are going to keep on going. And we're going to start with our round 3 wrap-up here, joining in progress, Just Sain, of course, a well-known face to anyone that follows Hearthstone closely, versus Matef, or Matef, not even sure how to pronounce it, which should go to show that a little bit of a lesser known light in comparison to his opponent here in Just Sain.
Very true. Matt FF rocking a lot of different classes from Just Sain also. In fact, he has the Priest and the Rogue, whereas Sain has a Mage in there, which is honestly a class that I did not expect to see from all that many GMs, because it feels like Mage has drawn the ire of certain regions already.
Yeah, it has a little bit, and it is not highly represented in the tournament, I would say. It's only a fairly low percentage of people have brought it, but things are pretty much up in the air. We have seen all sorts of weird decks, not in the least the extremely strange Highlander mage that came out from Briarthorn, that unusual Zoo deck that we saw in the previous series as well. So although it is surprising to see some of these decks come out, I don't think you can be too surprised at any individual deck considering the lack of preparation.
It is true. And we're starting off with a matchup, which is traditionally the reason why Priest came out of the woodwork, which is to try and prey on those egg warriors, which Sain has queued up first. Looking at the list for Sain, there's nothing too out of the ordinary here. It's actually the warrior on Matt FF's side, which is a bit more the bomb package, but that has been banned away. Matt FF is somebody I've seen on Twitter a couple of times, mainly for being on attack mode, which is a team which has had pretty good results in the non-mainstream circuits of tournaments, I would say. And he's definitely looking to cement his position in the highest level of Hearthstone, and proving a win versus a GM would be an achievement for him, though. For Sain, even though I say that this is a matchup that's heavily, maybe not heavily, but quite favored towards Priest, in my opinion, Warrior can still get those wins out, and it largely involves getting those OTK combos with Korkron Elite and the Bloodsworn Mercenary later on, which of course needs to be prefaced by a lot of early card draw. So seeing that Anchor in the opening has to be a welcome sight for Sain.
Yeah, I would agree. Anchor and Battle Rage for sure, 2 of the key cards in the matchup, because like you said, it's all about just trying to push a little bit of chip damage early and then saving up for those big burst combos late. But the problem can be presented on the other side, where board can be just won nice and early, and I think Priest has evolved to do that a little bit better now. You do see these additional minions like the Imprisoned Vile Fiend early that can just create early board states that are awkward for your opponent to deal with.
Yeah, the Vile Fiend played early on has similar implications to a Felma played early on, which is the earlier the better. And of course, with Priest in particular, it has a lot of synergy with Apotheosis, and not being able to clear the minion by the time it's active means it's a near guaranteed Apotheosis target.
Now, Sain has a couple of pretty good looking options here. I imagine with that Inner Rage, Rampage, Battle Rage combination in hand, Sain might be more interested in developing minions here over the Ankar, but I'm not necessarily sure it's cut and dry, because Ankar does get you Skipper, which does also play very nicely with all of those aforementioned cards.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree that the card draw prioritization is always at the foremost of my mind playing against Priest, but Warmaul Challenger is one of those cards that's pretty problematic for Priest to deal with if they're not running Forbidden Words, and Matt FF does not have that in the list here. And a lot of the times they're not running Shadow Word Pain. It's Shadow Word Death exclusively. So this is a minion that has a good chance of being able to stick and deal a lot of damage, and I don't expect to see Sain commit the Rampage onto it for the reason of Shadow Word Death.
Yeah, I do like the preemptive Inner Rage, though, knowing that the Rush minion is going to be awakened this turn. It's making sure it can't pick up too juicy a value trade, cutting into some of that health from the Warmaul Challenger. Very nice.
It can, however, damage itself and be copied by the thought-stolen Blood-sworn Mercenary. Still not enough damage to clear everything, but it is Matt FF's strongest play onto the board this turn. It's problematic, though, that all of the minions he would be playing, if that were the case, would end up at 2 health, which is within the range of Ankar or even Corsair Cash into weapon without a buff.
Very true. It's also not the worst target to just drop Mind Flayer Kaj here either.
Right? I think the foremost priority for Matt FF is figuring out how he can stick a minion for Grave Runes, and so the most likely way that something sticks, I think, has to do with Mind Flayer Kaj.
It looks very indecisive this turn, just based on his mouse movements. Look, there was a couple of considerations that he was still going through right up until the rope hit. Does end up on the Mind Flayer Kaj, though, which is the play that looked the most appealing to me.
Also going for preemptive damage onto the War Maul, making sure that if it gets copied on Sain's end, that the total health would be a little bit less here. But Sain does end up going for the Ankar, starts his card draw skipper on the first roll.
Yeah, crucially now has picked up damage on his face as well, so now with that skipper combination, he should be able to set up a pretty juicy looking battle rage in the near future. However, on the other side of the board, though, this board state could actually spiral out of control pretty quickly from what we're seeing.
Oh, yes. Not quite a way to damage and copy the Mind Flayer Kaj without it dying, but just a Grave Runes already looks like it could be pretty problematic for Sain. Again, Matt FF's priority is stick a minion so he can then stick the next spell, which would be Psyche Split on the follow-up. Because Sain has already played an Inner Rage, I don't think Matt FF's particularly concerned with dealing with this egg yet either. It's just going to be a bit of an annoyance later when he starts playing AoE, for example.
Yeah, and you're right to keep pointing out the Bloodsworn Mercenary because, you know, weirdly, the way this build of Priest has gone, you know, No Hands Gamer refers to it as Cube Priest because it's very similar to what Carnivorous Cube used to do in Warlock, where you're just duplicating large numbers of the same minion over and over. That's what Grave Rune and Psyche Split are doing. Bloodsworn Mercenary sounds like a pretty good card in that deck, honestly.
Oh, yes. It was a decision there for Matt FF whether he wanted to trade and then put the Grave Runes on his 110 or just immediately get the 2/3/3s, and I definitely like the higher tempo play here. Primarily because a 110 is probably not going to be dealt with by Sain anytime soon, and it's not very threatening at all. Whereas the 3/3s, even though they look a little bit more fragile towards weapon-based clears, I think that the damage is a big deal for Matt FF here to kind of stave off whatever Sain does.
Yeah, I would agree with that. However, Sain gets a huge pickup here with the Bloodsworn Mercenary of his own, is able to start ramping up the aggression, decides that this board state is way too complex for him to be interacting with, so just closes his eyes, sends all the damage to face. I respect it.
Yeah, definitely can agree with that. And we did talk about how committing the Rampage walks into Shadow Word Death, but now there are 2 of these minions, and forcing Matt to even have the death to begin with is an ask in the first place. And Sain's game plan looks like even if some of these minions are cleared, he can follow up with a Risky Skipper Battle Rage combo and start refilling. So options for Matt look like Psyche Split, but it's just not clean.
It's not, no. That's the problem with the Warmaul Challenger from the Priest side. Like, sure, he's stolen a Bloodsworn Mercenary, and that's all well and good, but he doesn't have all of the tools that just Sain has that makes that minion truly oppressive. The Inner Rage, the Rampage, all of those tools to turn that 10 health into a real attacking force on his side of the board.
I do remember casting a game where Priest generated an Inner Fire in this situation, and that made Inner Rage look very sad in comparison. But yes, the more regular outcome of this matchup tends to be in this vein. And now Sain, I do expect to see him commit at least 2 more minions onto the board for the big Battle Rage combo. just don't see a good way to fit the Terran into this, because he would much rather have that 6/6 still alive, even though the Terran would give him the egg
Right.
proc, and also Shadow Madness, always a worry.
Yeah, it just doesn't line up. I think card draw has to be the priority here because Sain is just kind of running out of gas. So this for sure looks like the Battle Rage turn to me.
And it sometimes gets scary to leave these big Battle Rages to the rope, because Blood Boil Brute off the top could change the rest of the turn. Sain is just going to play it out as a 5/8 here. Yeah, I don't think there was much reason to commit 6 damage into one of these 2/8 or 2/10s.
Agreed. It's made slightly more appealing, I guess, by the Blood Boil Brute draw, but I think he's representing so much damage here over time that just continuing the aggression here is pretty reasonable. It's way too much to commit to plow through this 20 plus health of pretty innocuous looking minions he has in play.
Yeah. And this is all just too slow for Matt FF. You can cube some 2-attack minions, but non-essential cubed is still ineffective.
Yes!
He is, however, able to clear off one of the most threats, but the Blood Boil coming down a turn early for Sain is huge. Just being able to tack that on to the end of the turn means he has that much more burst able to go face right now.
I think the one card that could potentially have made a mess of just Sain's game plan this game would have been Apotheosis if it had come out over the last couple of turns from Matt. But I think a lot of situations playing against Priest is about assessing situations where you can and cannot beat Apotheosis. And yeah, it turns out when your opponent has generated multiple 10 health minions, Apotheosis is not a card you're going to beat a lot of the time. So just saying probably spot on and just ignoring it up until this point.
Agreed. It has gotten to the point, though, where Sain does, again, want to play Terran onto the egg. I just looked at the priest list once more, and there's no Shadow Madness, so it would actually have to have been generated somehow, and you're not playing around that. However, Sain doesn't want to get rid of his Blood Boil Brute immediately. The Terran, while it gives him value, actually reduces his immediate threat on board, and so he is just going to commit into his second Rampage and hope that between his weapon swing and the Kobold Lackey and the minions he has on board, he can just get enough damage.
Right. This Soul Mirror might just have something to say about that, though.
Yes, he can clear the Blood Boil with the Soul Mirror and then trade with his 2/9. And not seeing a great way to proc the egg also and clear off the serpent.
Right.
Looking at Galakron also as an option, which gives him the armor, which is also pretty crucial at this point.
Yeah, again, it's that egg that's causing problems, right? With either play, be it the Soul Mirror or the Galakron line.
Yeah, with 0 invokes played so far, it is just going to be a coin flip on the Galakron. Matt decides it is a risk worth taking, and he gets the 50-50. Absolutely huge here.
Oh, that is Grom off the top, though, which is 10 damage next turn alongside his second Risky Skipper.
Very true. And now that Sain's threatening minions have already been cleared, it kind of gives him a window to go for a Terran play and
That's true.
put up a decoy somewhat, say, maybe you feel like you have to spend your mana removing this and the backside of it, and then he just blindsides him with a Grom. Gets another P2 as if he needed more burst.
Yeah, and it looks like Sain is going to play it out in the way that represents maximum power immediately, just Terran the egg to get the 3/4 into play and then play the rest of his minions afterwards, which I think I agree with in this scenario.
I agree too. You already brought up how scary Apotheosis is and has been for every turn since the first Warmaul hit the board. on Matt FF's side, but again, Sain does not have a way to deal with these 8 health minions that doesn't involve him using his burst resources. So instead, he's spending all of mana on a clear and saying that even if there is an apotheosis, the most you can heal for is 6 immediately with that, and then you still have the Grom skipper for the 10.
Yeah, and also a potentially crucial part of this turn. Not sure if it would have necessarily mattered in this exact game state, but just saying did not play the Armor Smith this turn, which is something that you do need to look out for when you're pushing for lethal against Priest. An Armor Smith on your side of the board can quite easily be an Armor Smith on their side of the board, especially when Soul Mirror can come into play and actually gain them a large amount of burst armor. I think in this scenario, he still would have had Matt covered, even if he had played the Armor Smith, but I still appreciate the discipline of just understanding that it's really not a good tool in the matchup.
Right. If it's Soul Mirror into an Armor Smith plus, say, a Renew on the back of that, maybe that is enough for Matt to get out of range. And Sain recognizes that the Armor Smith does little to nothing to advance his own game plan, so I love that he held on to it here. It's just going to be a Soul Mirror here for Matt. No cheap spells to try and combo or cheese out something with the Sethek Veil Weaver, so no options for Matt FF, and that is going to be a very clean game 2 to say, and we did not see the first game of this match on stream.
Yeah, Sain can now pick his poison, goes with the top deck Kor'kron instead of the Grom he had all along, but yeah, it was pretty straightforward game plan from Sain's perspective. He recognized early that he was not going to be winning the game on board as soon as Mindflayer Kaj come down. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse with Mindflayer Kaj already today in this Masters Tour, but it really does just seem to win the board for Priest whenever they play it in the early game. And that game was no different. So Sain just said, hey, you know what? Face time. And every point of damage from that point onwards, I think, just went straight to the face.
Yeah, I think you brought up a really great point also about how Mindflayer Kaj interacts with Warmaul Challenger. Yes, the 10 health is very annoying to deal with, but Warmaul Challenger is a card that is a threat on the warrior side because of what they have in their hands most of the time to try and combo off of it. But if it's copied just vanilla by a priest, then it's hardly doing anything to actually deal with what warrior has. And that's very different for minions that you might see in other matchups. If you copy a hunter card, oftentimes it's a threat when you play it down right away. So that is another thing that warrior has going for it in the matchup. And ultimately, I think that early decision between Warmaul and Ankar and the ordering on that optimized Sain's game plan. But he is going to go onto his Highlander mage now up against the priest.
Yeah, so how do you think this mage is positioned in the series? Obviously, Sain's last deck that he needs to win with, going up against Priest, Rogue, Warlock from Matt's side?
I actually tend to favor the priest in this matchup. I think that the mage value does come in chains towards the end game, but if priest manages to generate some removal in the meantime, they can go toe-to-toe very easily. Galakrond is huge, and so is Soul Mirror in this particular matchup. And Priest also, I think, shouldn't be underestimated in how much threats they can put down in the early game, which can also be problematic for Mage.
I will say, though, that since the Priests have started cutting Shadow Madness, life has got a lot easier for this card in particular, the Astromancer Solarian in the matchup.
For sure.
Used to be back in the day, you would like hold on to it and Conjurer's calling it immediately, or like Ray of Frost it yourself just to kill it the turn that it landed on your board. Then the priest would just thought steal it out of your deck anyway, you know, because they're a priest and that's what they do.
What you're saying here and what I'm hearing is that this is actually the new Raza Priest mirror, which is how I'm choosing to view this matchup so that I don't go crazy.
Sure. So, if that's what it takes, Gia, we can go with that.
Apotheosis looks pretty clean here. This is not one of the matchups where you're looking to save Apotheosis until you can get a lot of healing. I like the early tempo here. And it's worth noting that it can be scary to not have any healing once the regular Alexstrasza comes down from the mage, but I think it's just pretty straightforward for Matt FF there. And he has picked up the Zephyrus from Thoughtsteel, which will take a long time to be active, if at all, for Matt FF, but could put together some very clowny situations towards the end of this game.
Yeah, the matchup certainly does have potential to go super late to the point where that Zephyrus will just become naturally active. So we'll see if it gets there.
Ancient Mysteries, of course, is somewhat dead for Matt FF, but at the very least, it... oh, sorry. It's not a proc for Sethic. That doesn't target anything.
Yeah, not the most impactful thought steal he probably could have got overall. It's a sometimes not a Bloodfen Raptor, and then, yeah, a completely useless card in the Ancient Mysteries.
The generated Cabal Shadow Priest, though, could be playing a fairly big deal here if the Rusty Raider just comes down and trades into this Ooze. Again, it is just going to be one attack, high health, not very threatening, but it is a huge tempo swing for Matt FF. Makes the board problematic for Sain if he's hoping to just, say, play Reno the Relicologist to deal with it.
And I'm not seeing too many great alternatives for Sain. He doesn't really have anything to ramp into here as far as I can see.
Yeah, great point. The Mana Saver looks like it's not really turboing out anything of consequence. It could give him his either of the Alexstrasza's early. I guess in this early of a position in the game, you don't want to be playing regular Alexstrasza until you present the lethal on board for follow-up.
Right. Yeah, so I think this is smart in the end from Sain, to hold back on the stealth and just say, okay, I'm gonna. There's no real value in this just being a 3/5 in play. I'm just gonna hold on to it for a more crucial ramp turn, which with the coin still available as well, he can actually do pretty quickly.
I think it was very disciplined that he didn't play the Rusty Raider at all.
Yeah.
I don't think it was a read on Cabal Shadow Priest, but maybe just recognizing that the board state is, hey, there's going to be a 3/5. I might need that 5 attack to deal with the 3/5, or something of more consequence than just an Ooze on Matt FF's side here. And he's rewarded because now it can deal with the Cabal Shadow Priest, which with the other play would have just stolen it.
Yeah, and even though we're saying Sain's getting rewarded, I do also just like Matt's play here, where he's just said, okay, Cabal Shadow Priest, on tempo, on curve, just play it out, 6 mana Chill Wind Yeti, it's the best play I have here for immediate tempo. So yeah, little do they know that they could have been picking up a pretty juicy steal target here, but I respect the play.
Yeah, especially since Matt's curve is looking to just be Tiamat or early Galakron, very valid matchup as well, just to be able to maximize those hero powers. Sain is just going to go for the Rolling Fireball here. Probably one of the cleanest board states to use it on.
So if you really don't want to get 9-dropped this turn, you do have the Galakron option. But how important is that card as a late-game removal tool, do you think?
I wonder.
I would be inclined to say it would be important in most cases, but looking at the state of Matt FF's hand, where he has Time Rip, he has Soul Mirror, and he's probably hoping to Threat Chain instead, looking at the Tiamat, I do like getting the Galakron online here immediately. And it also has that upside of, if you lock out the 9-drop this turn, you're probably not going to be forced into using removal on the following turn.
That's true, yeah. As I mentioned, with the coin in hand, it's only going to slow Sain down by 1 turn, but that 1 turn can end up being extremely crucial here. His hand still not really going places too fast for Matt, but that is the way of Priest.
Very small thing, but I'm surprised he didn't actually play his Ancient Mysteries to clear up hand space while he had the free mana to do so, because I find that hand space is a very important factor to consider as Priest when you want to be hero powering, but you also want to be playing your invokes, which fill up your hand even more.
That is actually a really good point. Yeah, I think previous to this, there was one other turn where I think he floated mana without playing it as well. I think up till this point, there was probably more value in just making Sain play around mystery cards that you might have thought stolen than revealing what the card is. But now in Galakron form, right, that's when the hand size actually starts to become a big issue because you're generating so many cards every day.
In any case, that is a pretty good generated spell for Sain here. Yes, he probably does expect some measure of board clear, but the water elementals have a pretty good stat line to survive the Soul Mirror at the very least.
They do, yeah, and any value trades that do get taken also then get cleared up by the Imprisoned Observer awakening on the next turn for Sain. And this is also just a perfect setup into that Alexstrasza that you were talking about. This is more than enough damage on board to really justify, you know, dropping regular Alexstrasza and just jamming face if his board does stick.
All things considered, it is still a pretty decent Soul Mirror, and having 3 health on the Water Elementals left on Matt FF's side is a big deal because they're out of range for the Imprisoned Observer.
Yeah, they are now frozen for the next turn anyway, though, so Sain could just choose to deal with the Light Spawn if he really wants to. He could just choose to ignore the board state completely and just keep developing.
It's a curious proposal. I mean, the nerf to Dragon Queen, I would say, is a very, very big deal here because Galakron priests are not usually running Plague of Death these days.
Right.
And having seen a Soul Mirror and the Galakron itself be used, just Dragon Queen with 2 0-cost dragons could be very well a lethal setup into the regular Alexstrasza on the following turn. But that's not really an option for Sain here. It's just going to develop his Tiamat.
Divine Shield Wind Fury is a soft lethal setup here with the Alexstrasza in hand. As mentioned, the Water Elementals on the other side of the board do remain frozen, missing their next attack. So Matt has very limited options to be able to answer this, but you'd expect Priest to have a spot removal to be able to take care of this minion from hand most of the time.
Yes, the time rips are available. It's looking like Matt FF is going to end the turn with a hand liable to overdrawing one way or the other. It's a result not just of him not playing Ancient Mysteries, but not having gotten a Fate Weaver earlier on, which is a very big deal to kind of smooth out Priest curves. Could just go for Grave Ruins, but this still looks very scary into just an Alexstrasza plopping down from Sain.
It absolutely does. Having now retained the coin as well, just saying can actually do the old-fashioned Dragon Queen Alexstrasza here. He could end up being able to play everything.
So while that does seem like a fun idea, it doesn't really, I think, look so enticing when there are 2 ways to freeze those dragons immediately. And if he removes the other Water Elemental, of course, it has the 2 copies hidden behind it. Just coining out the ping, I think, is very reasonable.
That looks like a Renew coming off the top, and it absolutely is. That was already pointed at Matt's face by the time it appeared on our screen. Pretty mediocre options, though.
Smite is the most efficient one. Gosh, I'm looking at a Tiamat Wind Fury Rush with the Smite to deal with the Alexstrasza, but that's pretty much all his mana, and then he still leaves a 3/3 on the board.
Yep.
And at which point, Sain could just discover Malagos's Fireball.
Does look like the most efficient play that Matt does have, though, but yeah, he's still struggling.
Yeah, this is the way to remove the most damage on board, so he trades once into the Observer, once into Alex, smites the Alex, trades into a 3/3, and prays that he's not dead. It's just that last part where things get a bit dicey. Oh, okay, I didn't see this play. This is very cool. Instead, going for the freeze leaves the Alex alive, but less damage immediately available to Sain. I like it a lot.
Yep. Now these Water Elementals are really starting to put in work because Sain struggles to develop any kind of board here that can't really be frozen out again. Oh! Oh!
You talked so much about this card in the earlier round.
It's so good, Gia. This card is obnoxiously good.
Even when it's naturally run in your deck for 5 mana.
Yep.
Yeah, that is a big bummer for Matt FF. He has gotten a Murazon, but that is not going to get any battle cries done. He needs to remove the board. And he's just going to believe in the Sethic into death here.
Yeah, that ain't it. Well, okay. There was the chance of an evasive worm.
That would have been very pog.
Just a fairly genuine guess at this point. Probably taking the one... Oh, actually didn't... I guess he picked Amazing Reno because that's probably the one that he wants in that scenario.
Right. literal wishful thinking. But
Yep.
this is many chances for Sain to get lethal. The Frostbolt is going to close it out. A clean 3-0 for just Sain, despite my saying that I feel like Priest has a pretty good shot in the matchup.
Yeah, and I would be inclined to agree with you, honestly. My experience with Priest in that matchup is fairly good as well, but I will say that it's not necessarily the build of Priest that I'm used to playing. I don't have much experience, as much experience with the Cube Priest as I do with kind of the old-fashioned straight-up Galakron Priest that people were playing, and are continuing to play in this tournament as well. But yes, as you mentioned, big win for Sain there, going up to a 3-0 record, and it feels like it's been a little bit of a while since we've seen just Sain having a dominant run through tournaments that aren't Grandmasters after we got so used to his 2019 performance where he just stomped through everything.
Yeah, it would be very cool to see the return of that. I mean, on his Twitter bio, it says Legacy 3-star Master. I don't think there are that many people who know what a 3-star Master is these days, but to call himself a Legacy, I think is very accurate. He has one of the most storied legacies in Hearthstone alongside Hunter Ace, who unfortunately has been relegated, but just saying could be carrying the torch on. And also, just proving that Americas is not completely dead as a region, because I think both Americas and APAC have a lot of catching up to do, at least in of the prize pools that we've earned so far for Masters Tour.
Gia, that mere statement alone betrays that you think that Americas is mostly dead as a region.
It's not fully dead, you know. Mostly dead is somewhat alive. I think there's a movie that had that line.
Okay. Moving swiftly on, speaking of legacies, there is a player here that we are going to catch up with who is very much on the way to creating a legacy of their own, and that is Gabby. Now, if you don't know who Gabby is, and I would not blame you because we haven't really seen that much coverage of him in high-level tournaments, Gabby is the ladder player right now. Like, without doubt, no arguments, Gabby is rank 1 legend at any given time. Pick a date, pick a time, pick a region, Gabby is rank 1 legend on ladder at that time. You can almost guarantee it. He is an insane ladder player.
Yes, I think perhaps carrying the torch of Tyler, if we want to draw all of these comparisons, and being able to be so consistent on ladder is no mean feat these days. I think a lot of players have been feeling a little bit of fatigue with playing the qualifiers every single. It's also making the ladder qualification into the Masters Tour a bit more enticing for some players, and there's so many people vying for those top 16 slots. So to be able to be at the top of that all season on any server just blows my mind.
Yeah, and generally so far ahead as well. Like, there's been stories of, you know, players, Crane or whoever else it is who's chasing them down, being on rank 2 and winning 4 or 5 games and still not taking the rank 1 away from Gabby, which means Gabby is, you know, stretched out a lead by winning multiple times on rank 1 legend to extend his MMR lead. It's pretty incredible what this kid at such a young age, I believe he's only 14 years old at the moment.
What?
Something like that, yeah. It might be 15 at this point. We do have a tendency as Hearthstone casters that whatever age the person is when we first hear of them, they're that age forever.
Oh gosh, I feel like a dinosaur, Sottle. To be fair though, to SN Brox, we should also mention that he's had quite a few appearances at the Masters Tours already. We saw his teammate Jing a while ago,
here, though,
and off to a 2-0 start, as Lorenzo mentioned. China has been killing it so far, and now he is leading 2-1 in this series. However, this is not a very great matchup that he's facing here, and the board for Gabby is already looking pretty threatening. The coin into Netherwing, if it were even in hand, is not available yet for SN Brox this turn. So it's good timing from Gabby to
on his
just,
side here either.
Push out all of this pressure
Doesn't have the
before
dark
that
skies,
removal
which
option
is
available.
usually pretty crucial.
Job done.
Yeah.
And the curve is still looking good for Gabby, honestly. Brox can pick apart this Dragonbane with the Nether Breath Mortal Coil, but still, without that crucial Dark Skies early, he is just really struggling to stem the flow of this aggression from Gabby's side.
Must destroy.
Very tough hand to play out here from Brox. Probably just considering whether the second Nether Breath needs to be used, whether a tap even needs to come in over the coming turns. Might just be considering the Soulfire here on the Primordial instead.
On one platform but kept speaking on the other, the usual Gia special.
Welcome back.
I think we have been talking at the same time, but not aware of it. In any case, though, it looks like it has been going pretty great for Gabby. The curve never stops for Highlander Hunter, but SN Brox has just drawn the Morg Nether Breath now.
Yeah, this is second Nether Breath going down though, and Gabby really shows no real signs of slowing down on generating threats here. Can curve all the way through to that Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, which I've talked about now with Raven and with Lorinda, so I guess I'll ask you the question as well. We've been seeing some people cutting Dragon Queen Alexstrasza from their Highlander Hunter. Any thoughts on that?
Nonsense. I like the Dragon Queen even still, just because I mean, you learn to count with Highlander Hunter. There's no better card you can play on 9 mana. And even if the follow-up, or the immediate impact is not quite so big, you can still parcel out the threats across many turns, which you tend to do in this matchup anyway. I don't think it's very advisable to drop down Dragon Queen and both of the zero-cost dragons pre-nerf against a deck that plays Twisting Nether.
Sure.
And so I think it's not that big of a deal for this particular matchup, and I definitely think cutting Dragon Queen Alexstrasza looks a little bit weird.
Very astutely put. You had me at nonsense, Gia. You didn't need to carry on after that. I was sold already.
This is a pain for SN Brox to deal with. He does have a clear onto the 2 leftmost minions with his Blood Mage Thalnos and Rain of Fire if he wants to. Can then follow up with a Plot Twist. Thalnos is a card that I feel like should have been in the very first few iterations of the deck, but probably didn't get there until a couple weeks after everybody was starting to play it.
Sure. Yeah, I did see a couple of players flirt around with it early, but it certainly was not core, and now it does seem to be in the vast majority of lists that we're seeing.
Not the greatest plot twist if SN Brox were to go for it here, so I can understand him prioritizing the tap, but having used both the Nether Breath... Oh my! Yeah, it's very well played.
Indeed. That is the correct response to the top deck Dino Tamer Bran on turn 7.
And so does a top deck Dino Tamer Bran beget plot twist into completed quest into tap Keladon?
I don't think he has enough draws, does he? Does this even finish quest?
Does it? Oh man.
I think he's one. I think the tap completes his quest. It doesn't matter because he's drawn the Keladon anyway.
Oh. Well, there's a second twist.
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna have to go for it. It is a very slim out.
Yeah, I do like
really
it though.
Get Brood Mothers.
This time the Keladon is not coming out to play, which means there is the 1 in 13, but he doesn't hit it. I do like that he recognized that was his out in the position, though. As soon as it was drawn the first time, he just threw it straight back into the deck immediately with that second plot twist, understanding that he absolutely needed to hit it with the hero power in that position. But yeah, it's kind of just the story of the matchup for me. I don't know how you feel about it, but I feel like that's a pretty comfortable matchup for Highlander Hunter these days.
I tend to agree, even without the Dragon Queen coming down on curve. So I guess we can't properly have that argument until another day. But I don't think that SN Brox is in the greatest spot yet. I'm actually not sure. That Gabby necessarily is in the greatest spot. Not quite sure what the remaining deck is, but I do see that he has a rogue here. And if that's the matchup lighting up into Quest Warlock, I don't really like his chances.
Yeah, I would be inclined to agree. It seems like you should have enough pressure and enough aggression and kind of our historical understanding of what Rogue does. It should like beat up on weird control and combo decks, but it turns out in reality that's not really the case. And Quest Warlock can usually stabilize and swing back against Rogue most of the time. Although I will say the addition of the Questing Adventurers have helped out that matchup just a little bit.
Turns out, though, that I'm an idiot. No surprise. And it's the mirror that is left here for SN Brox and Gabby, the Quest Warlock on either side. And the differences in the list always are what we need to look at to see who can get those extra few percentages. Both players running double Abyssal Summoner, so none of that Cartooth Defender nonsense. But there is an Ooze in SN Brox's list, which is not very useful in the matchup, which is not there for Gabby. And instead, he is running, I think...
Second Soulfire.
Yep, second Soulfire. Oh, there's a Hellfire here as well for SN Brox. I haven't seen that in a while.
Wait, whoa! Okay. Alright. Now I'm interested.
I mean, it just seems to have become obsolete because Crazed Netherwing is a card.
Right.
But that could be additional burst. It's a card that can be cheapened and played with Malagos.
Yep, very true. Can function as additional reach in a lot of positions as long as you are healthy enough to use it, of course. But yeah, minor differences in the deck. I think the Hellfire is that biggest one, but Acidic Swampoos versus second Soulfire, obviously you would think on the surface having a second Soulfire would increase your percentage in this matchup, just having more burst options. But actually just a nice, easy card to dump that doesn't really get you into a mess like Acidic Swampoos isn't necessarily the end of the world in the matchup, because it's one of the things that you can struggle with in the mirror, is finding efficient cards just to get out of your hand so you can keep life tapping.
One of the things I loved about this matchup is that I could just spend those first few seconds looking at the deck lists, and then I turn my head and a plot twist has been played, and you know that the gas has been applied.
Yeah.
SN Brox gets... very close to quest completion immediately, and Gabby is out here dumping his Moargs because the hand is terrible.
Yeah, you see it already, exactly the kind of thing I was talking about. You absolutely have to life tap every turn, especially in Gabby's position, where he's just seen the plot twist get ripped by Brox and does not yet have one of his own. He absolutely needs to keep up on card draw as best as he possibly can. So that means dumping cards from hand, and if the best card that you have to dump is a Moarg Artificer, as valuable as you might feel it is to counteract the Alex Straza swing from your opponent, you just got to get cards out of your hand.
It is very true. It's also valuable somewhat to give an answer for the Abyssal Summoners, but it's looking to be in a state where Gabby is going to be the first one to play down his Abyssal. But that is a very clean double Moarg abuse of interaction there. And it also means that if Gabby just coins out the Abyssal, the Moarg is sticking around.
Yes.
So SN Brox, again, has a good way of dealing with it, or a relatively easy way.
Yeah, not the end of the world, though. If a burn spell does get thrown at this Abyssal Summoner, obviously, ideally, you'd just love to keep your 8/8. You'd love to make it as difficult to remove as possible. I think it's rare that you win this matchup via early tempo. It's only in the most, blowout discrepancies of draws that you see that happen. So, trading your Abyssal Summoner for your opponent's Nether Breath is something that you're usually fairly happy to do, I would say.
Especially when after you trade it and there's not the follow-up Abyssal Summoner, you actually buy back tempo in that case.
Yes.
Because in terms of cards that you can drop on curve that are threats here, it's pretty much just Abyssal Summoner and oftentimes Crazed Netherwing. And if there's not that in hand for Gabby as a follow-up, then suddenly SN Brox is free to drop his own Abyssal Summoner and have that tempo advantage on top of being closer towards quest completion. So I think it's totally fine for him to expend some removal here and just keep the card draw going.
So Brox was really deep in the tank that turn. It looked to me like it was a fairly clean, just kill down the minion and move on to it with your life. Obviously the 8/8 needs to die, but as I was describing, you don't necessarily want to use one of your burn spells on it. Do you think there was genuinely other plays he was considering that time?
Because of the way the mana lined up, I guess that was the play that made the most sense. If he had an extra mana to play Crazed Netherwing alongside the Nether Breath, I think that would have been a lot more enticing. But for Gabby, that was quite unfortunate that not only did he not have any plot twist, but also no dragon to even have a good tempo swing with his Crazed Netherwing. Instead, he goes for some card draw and has to use another breath to get rid of a not very threatening minion, just to make sure he gets to keep tapping and clear up hand space.
Yeah, the only other thing I can wonder about Brox's turn is whether that was the concern, is whether he wanted to play multiple cards instead of just one so that he could just get those life taps going. But yeah, it seemed like a pretty clean color down.
And here is the multiple card play, which also gives him a lot of initiative. Finally, for Gat Twist.
And that is literally the last turn where that draw keeps him in it, because I believe Brox completes the quest off his natural draw next turn, which is why playing 2 cards was so crucial from Brox's side. It means he can start his turn with life tapping into a 0-cost card. So the fact that Gabby now rips the plot twist to complete his own quest and find himself the first 0-cost card of the game a turn before Brox is able to do so, means that was the most relevant of all turns to be finding that draw.
Right on time. He's also picked up a Dark Skies to make this turn very, very simple for Gabby here. Picks up a pretty nice minion also just to play for free.
Yep.
And get the tempo back in his favor. And now we've got a real mirror on our hands.
Yep, things are about to get interesting. Brox actually all the way down at 19 here is gotta just have a little thought in the back of his mind about potential lethal pushes from the opponent, because Gabby is really not that far off with the amount of burst damage this deck packs, with 4 damage in play and the opponent at 19.
Yeah, it is definitely a consideration, but always the first manner of business is tapping when you can and seeing what that 0-cost card gives you in terms of options. SN Brox, we've talked about how 19 is just a little bit above that 18 health threshold, which is so scary to the Malygos Double Soulfire or Malygos Netherbreast Soulfire. And so I think he was fine there even if he didn't draw into that Aranasi, but that additional healing is always going to be a bit of a relief there.
0-cost Zeph is very nice, but not active just yet. By the way, Brox is sequencing very nice on the previous turn. Obviously, Dark Skies first for the clear, but then rips the Sense Demons to replace that 1 card in his hand with 2 cards before he plays the Abyssal Summoner.
This is huge. Everything is glowing. It's active. The Zephyrus and the Dragon Queen, Alex Straza. I'm not seeing immediate lethal options just yet, but I think it's fine for SN Brox to expend 1 of these spells to deal with the 9/9, as long as his own 9/9 can connect face.
Wow, Gia, you are ambitious. Opponent at 30? Opponent at 30, no 0-cost cards in hand. You're checking for lethal.
I just think about Wind Fury these days. The one time I missed it, and I just never looked at it the same way again.
Clear a space in the hand, tap for your 0-cost card.
Your wish is my
Pretty standard stuff at this point in the game. However, this is a little abnormal. Tempoing out the Zeph here for the Shadow Word Death. What do you think of it?
I'm a bit surprised because my first inclination for going about clearing the 9/9 was to bump in his 2/2 and then use Crazed Netherwing and a removal of that, but I'm not sure if that would have left him the mana to go for a tap here. SN Brox clearly thinks he's done something a bit wrong though. Or he's BMing.
Always entirely possible. This is another one of those pretty awkward hands to get a card out of. So yeah, I was going to say, he might just lead with the plot twist here. He does lose 0-cost Zeph, but the Zeph isn't active anyway. He will know how many duplicates he is away from that being active. We don't have the luxury of a deck tracker for these Masters Tours.
Yeah, looking to get Caladan, but doesn't get it here. You have that upside of shuffling the expensive dragons back into this deck, but unfortunately doesn't leave him with a clean way of dealing with the entire board.
Oh, Moarg Rain Breath is pretty spicy here.
Yeah.
Finish it all off with the second 0-cost Broodmother of the game as well.
Excuse me, that is very clean.
Now, 6 cards remaining, and I believe both Alex Strasers amongst them for Brox, which means his hero power is extremely high value at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like Dark Skies might be the play here. Again, card needs to be dumped from hand, first and foremost.
Yes, definitely like that. And then he can tap. And if he needs to, he can dump a Crazed Netherwing, which puts him down to 19. Again, relatively safe. I guess it's a struggle to use safe in any context now that many players have been able to get their taps in. But because he just saw a plot twist from Gabby, he knows that all of the cards are full cost again, and he played the 0-cost Broodmother here.
Yeah, he knows the range is very simple right now from Gabby's side. Of course, there is always the disaster scenario where this very first tap just nails the absolute nuts. There's not really a lot you can do to play around that. Gabby now with the Soulfires. I believe with the Zephyrus insurance policy, this is guaranteed no matter which way you slice it. Yep.
Well, if the first Soulfire had discarded Zephyrus, it was one off. Right?
We had... Oh, of course, because Netherwing wasn't active. Yeah. Malagus was the only dragon. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
I wonder if there was a way to 100% that if he had gone for Netherwing first, and then Malagos? And then the Soulfire. But maybe the mana didn't quite work out because he had to tap for that. But in any case, that was very, very low odds from that point for Gabby to discard his lethal. And that is quite an explosive end to a very long build-up of a series, I would say.
It was, yeah, and that means that Gabby is going to move his way up the standings as well, goes to a 3-0 record, and it's a pretty stacked group of players sitting at 3-0. We've got Crane up there, Blizers is at it again, he is 3-0, looking for potentially a third Masters Tour victory. Fellow GMs to Blizers at this point, Muzzy and Nalgadan up there as well as Paveling Book, who is one of the leaders in the NA point standings. All of those players 3-0. Gabby, the ladder god himself, has now joined them, but enough about round 3. We are ready to get into round 4. So without further ado,